I was halfway through pouring myself a glass of water when I heard my name, whispered from the kitchen. Sharp and deliberate, like it didn't belong in a room filled with laughter and Christmas music. I froze, the sound of cutlery, clinking, and my sister's kids, screaming in the living room, suddenly fading into the background. Then my mom said it clearly, it's settled. After New Year's, we'll move them into his place. He won't say no. My dad chuckled under his breath and replied, of course he won't. He's always been the responsible one. My stomach dropped. They were talking about me and my house, my $300,000 house that I worked years to afford. And they were planning, without asking me, to move my sister, her husband, and their 3 kids into it, just like that. So tell me honestly, was I wrong for what I did next? Growing up, I was always the good kid, the quiet one, the one who didn't cause problems. My younger sister, Sarah, was the opposite. Loud, emotional, always getting into trouble, but somehow always landing on her feet because my parents would rush in to fix everything for her. If she failed a class, they blamed the teacher. If she quit a job, they said she was too good for it. Meanwhile, I was working part-time at 16, saving every penny, because I knew nobody was going to hand me anything. By the time I was 25, I had moved out, built my career from scratch, and slowly clawed my way up into a stable financial position. I sacrificed a lot. No vacations, no expensive hobbies, barely any social life. But eventually it paid off. I bought my own house, not a mansion, but a solid, beautiful place in a quiet neighborhood. It was mine. Every brick, every payment, every late night, it all belonged to me. My parents acted proud, sure, but there was always this underlying expectation in their tone, like my success was something they were entitled to share. Family helps family, my mom would always say, especially when Sarah inevitably needed money again. Sarah, on the other hand, had a completely different life path. She got married young to a guy named Jake, who, to put it bluntly, never really grew up. He bounced from job to job, always chasing big opportunities that never materialized. Sarah had 3 kids in quick succession, and instead of stabilizing, their life just became more chaotic. They moved from apartment to apartment, always one step ahead of eviction notices. And every time things got bad, my parents stepped in. At first I tried to help too. I lent money a few times, helped fix their car once, even babysat when things got overwhelming for them. But it became a pattern, a never-ending cycle where they relied on everyone else to clean up their mess while taking zero responsibility. So I set boundaries. I told them I couldn't keep bailing them out, that they needed to figure things out for themselves. My parents didn't like that. Sarah definitely didn't like that. And slowly, I became the selfish one in the family. Fast forward to Christmas. I almost didn't go that year. Something in me already felt off, like I was walking into a situation I wasn't going to enjoy. But it was Christmas, and despite everything, I still cared about my family. The evening started off normal enough. The house was decorated, the smell of food filled the air, and everyone was pretending like we were one big happy family. Sarah's kids were running wild. Jake was glued to his phone, and my parents were playing the role of perfect hosts. But there were little signs. My mom kept glancing at me in a strange way. My dad kept asking about my house, how big it was, how many rooms, whether I was using all the space. It felt calculated. And then came that moment in the kitchen, the moment everything clicked. They weren't just casually talking. They had already made a decision. They were planning to move Sarah and her entire family into my house after New Year's. No discussion, no permission, just an assumption that I would go along with it because I always had. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to process what I had just heard. Part of me wanted to storm in and confront them right then and there. But another part of me, the part that had been taken advantage of for years, told me to stay quiet and listen. My mom continued, "He has extra rooms. It's perfect. And once they're settled, he won't kick them out. He's not that kind of person." My dad laughed softly. "Exactly. He'll complain at first, but he'll give in. He always does." That's when something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, decisively. For the first time in my life, I realized they didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a resource. I went back to the living room like nothing had happened. I smiled, I laughed, I opened presents. I played my role perfectly, but inside I was already planning. Now here's where I need you to really think about this, because this is the point where everything could have gone in a different direction. I could have confronted them calmly. I could have tried to reason with them, or I could do what I eventually chose to do. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and really ask yourself, what would you have done in my shoes? By the time dinner ended, I had already made my decision. The next morning, I woke up early and made a phone call. Within a week, my house was listed on the market. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not Sarah, no one. I just moved quietly and quickly. The market was good, and because my house was in great condition, it sold faster than I expected. Within 3 weeks, I had a buyer. Within a month, the deal was done. At the same time, I made another move. I accepted a job offer in another city, something I had been considering for a while but never fully committed to. Now it felt like the perfect opportunity. I packed my things, handled all the paperwork, and prepared to leave. Meanwhile, my family was completely in the dark. They were still operating under the assumption that their plan was going to work. Then came New Year's Day. They invited themselves over to my house. Not even subtly. My mom called and said, "We're coming by with Sarah and the kids to talk about arrangements." Arrangements. Like it was already decided. I told them to come. When they arrived, I greeted them at the door, calm and collected. But instead of stepping into my living room, they were met with empty space. No furniture, no decorations, just bare walls and packed boxes. The confusion on their faces was immediate. What is this?" my mom asked. I looked at them and said, "I sold the house." Silence. Sarah blinked like she didn't understand the words. "What do you mean you sold it?" I said evenly, "it's not mine anymore. I'm moving next week." That's when everything exploded. My mom started panicking. "You can't do this." "What about Sarah and the kids?" I looked at her and said something I had been holding in for years. "What about them?" My dad's face turned red. "Don't be selfish. They need help." "And I've helped," I replied. "For years. But I'm not their solution. I'm not your backup plan." Sarah started crying, accusing me of abandoning her, of being heartless, of ruining everything. Jake just stood there, silent as always. But for the first time, their words didn't affect me, because I finally saw the truth clearly. They weren't asking for help. They were expecting control over my life. "I heard you," I said finally. "On Christmas." "I heard your plan." The room went dead quiet. My mom's face went pale. My dad looked away. "You didn't even think to ask me," I continued. "You just decided. Like I don't have a say in my own life." No one had an answer for that. In the end, they left angry. Furious, actually. My mom cried, my dad called me ungrateful. Sarah said she never wanted to speak to me again. And you know what? For the first time in my life, I felt free. I moved to my new city, started my new job, and slowly built a life that was truly mine. Without guilt, without pressure, without being treated like an emergency fund with a heartbeat. Months passed, then a year. Eventually, I heard through relatives that Sarah and Jake had to move into a small apartment and actually start working consistently to make ends meet. It wasn't easy for them, but they managed. Funny how that works when there's no one left to rely on. My relationship with my parents is distant now. We talk occasionally, but things are different. There's a tension that never fully goes away. But honestly, I'm okay with that, because I finally chose myself. Looking back, maybe I could have handled it differently. Maybe I could have had a long conversation, tried to fix things peacefully, but part of me knows it wouldn't have changed anything. They had already made up their minds. Sometimes the only way to stop being taken advantage of is to remove yourself completely. So was I wrong? I'll let you decide that. If you think I did the right thing, go ahead and like this video. If you've ever been in a situation where your family expected too much from you, hit that subscribe button because there are more stories like this coming. And I really want to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in my place? Drop your opinion in the comments below. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.